Quality sleep happens when we feel safe enough to let go. And that sense of safety is shaped by our environment, how it holds us, regulates us, and gently signals the brain that it's time to rest. Welcome to the Haus podcast, your go-to space where design, cognitive sciences, well-being, and business come together. I'm your host, Monica Costa, and today you're tuning into a Neurodesign Capsule, an exploration into how the spaces we dwell in can engage our senses, shape our thoughts, and quietly guide our behavior. This podcast is powered by Haus, born from its mission to guide designers on how to create spaces for well-being grounded in cognitive sciences principles. Let's dive in. There's a quiet truth we don't always acknowledge. The way we sleep tonight shapes how we go tomorrow. Because sleep is the brain's most vital act of restoration, where memories are filed away and where the nervous system finds its quiet rhythm again. And I know sleep is a widely known topic, but what's not talked about enough is that our environment, so the light, the air, the textures that hold us while we're sleeping, can either anchor that restoration process or disrupt it before it even begins. For years, I didn't realize how much my own sleep environment was working against me. As a child, I had a TV in my room, a tiny nightlight always on, and later, my first phone. And if you're a millennial, you know what I'm talking about. It was sitting right beside me in bed. So every night, I would stay up late chatting with friends and watching TV shows. And honestly, that setup followed me well until adulthood. Not even going through architecture or design school really helped me think about the impact that the sleep environment had on me. And I actually realized how much it was important when I had my first kid. Like many first moms, I felt a little lost, just to say the least. No one close to me had been through this recently, and there were many things that I was figuring out alone. But one of the hardest parts was sleep. Or the lack of it, actually. I mean, for me, everything seemed right. The feedings, the schedule, the bedtime routine. But she just wouldn't sleep. And that whole thing that people say about sleeping like a baby, yeah, I didn't get it. So I reached out to a sleep consultant. And while yes, she covered the basics, so circadian rhythm, light exposure, feeding times, and all that, what surprised me the most was how much she emphasized the environment. She even gave me a checklist of elements to adjust or pay attention to. The lighting, temperature, air circulation, EMFs, and even nap time setup had to be considered thoughtfully. And I even remember thinking, wait, even for naps this matters? But the more I tuned into it, the more it made sense. My daughter's sleep became more consistent, deeper, and easier. And since we were sharing the same room, those changes supported me too. My sleep started to gently shift right alongside hers. And that's why this matters to me, because I have experienced firsthand how the right conditions can invite rest and gently guide the body into balance. It's so easy to think of sleep as something that just happens. But the truth is, it is a complex conversation between your brain, your body, and the environment you're in. And that conversation is very important because it plays out during a full third of your life. So maybe it's time to stop thinking and focusing only about the sleep quantity. So how many hours we're getting or how many hours of sleep we're losing. And start asking, where am I sleeping? How is the space where I'm spending about a third of my life supporting my well-being? This episode is about that space and how to design bedrooms that go from being where you crash at night to where the nervous system soft lands and finally lets go. So let's start from the beginning. Temperature, because it's one of those things that sounds so basic, but it's actually one of the most powerful levers we have. Okamoto Mizuno and Mizuno in 2012 did a deep dive where they brought together a group of experiments where they literally tracked brain waves, heart rates, and breathing patterns, looking at what happens when you sleep in a room that's just a little too warm or a little too cold. And what they found was that rooms kept between 17 and 21 degrees Celsius so about 63 to 70 Fahrenheit, supported the body's natural cooling process, letting the brain drop deeper into sleep and stay there longer. In those cooler conditions, people have more sleep that really lets their brain clean itself, consolidate memories, and also reset for the next day. And moving from temperature, let's now go to air quality, which I actually feel like is so overlooked, but honestly makes so much of a difference. A pilot study in Lisbon monitored real bedrooms and found that pollutants like PM2.5, formaldehyde, CO2, and even indoor fungi were linked to disrupted sleep stages, higher heart rates, and less REM sleep, exactly the kind of rest we need to recover properly. And this is aligned with other research too. A broader systematic review covering 22 studies across age groups and continents confirmed a consistent link between air pollution, both indoor and outdoor, and poor sleep quality, including more sleep disturbances and even breathing irregularities. Interestingly, other studies also show that just slight elevations in CO2, around 3.8%, the range being from 2.3 to 6.5%, have been enough to trigger awakenings in some cases. Now, for us as designers, the best practices that we can include are integrating low emission materials, proper ventilation, and even biofiltration elements like plants. Also, avoiding materials that off gas harmful compounds. So we can actually minimize sources of indoor pollution like excess heat retention or VOC levels. Those are also great options. And now that we've cleared the air, literally, the next cue for a proper sleeping environment is light, which, let's be honest, might be one of the most underestimated disruptors of sleep. A 2022 lab study by Ivy Mason and her team at the Northwestern University tested what happened when healthy young adults are exposed to room light while sleeping. Just about 100 lux. The results, just one night with the lights on, raised their heart rate, reduced their heart rate variability, and impaired their insulin sensitivity the next morning. But the interesting thing here is that it wasn't even about melatonin levels. The real shift came from the sympathetic nervous system activation, which basically means that their body stayed on when they were supposed to be off. And this research is just one to many others of decades of evidence showing how even dim light at night, around 8 lux, so the glow of a basic nightlight, can throw off your circadian rhythm, reduce melatonin levels, and delay your sleep onset. And several other studies showing that exposure to artificial light at night, especially blue light from screens or cool tone LEDs, can have the same effect. And well, as designers, there's many things that we can do here, starting from incorporating warm color temperature lighting in bedrooms to dimmable fixtures, and maybe also layered lighting with sconces or low position lamps so the user can't see the light bulb. And ideally, smart controls to shift the space into a sleep mode for a good quality rest. And well, we can talk about quality sleep if we do not address something designers often overlook, which is the environmental noise. A review published by Demian Halperin in Noise and Health highlights just how deeply transportation and environmental noise disrupt sleep, especially at night. These sound levels actually alter sleep architecture, so they increase the light sleep and reduce the deep restorative stages like REM and slow wave sleep. Even levels as low as 33 to 48 decibels, which can come from distant traffic or planes, were shown to trigger stress responses in the body, like spikes in cortisol, adrenaline, and heart rate, all without fully waking up the person. This means that when you wake up the next morning and you go like, oh, I just rested the whole night, maybe your nervous system didn't feel the same way. And according to the World Health Organization, there's a causal link between nighttime noise exposure and things like self-reported sleep disturbances and increased use of sleep medications. Over time, this kind of nighttime disruption has been linked to cardiometabolic risks, including hypertension, stroke, and even increased insulin resistance. Now, for us designers, it is a reminder that soundproofing, spatial layout, material selection, and strategic placement of bedrooms must be taken seriously in our design decision-making process. Another similar but often overlooked and somewhat polarized factor in your sleep environment are the invisible disruptors of the modern world. So, electromagnetic fields or EMFs, Wi Fi, routers, phone chargers, or even nearby cell towers. Some studies show that even when not in use, close items emitting electromagnetic fields can mess with how deeply you sleep, making it harder to drop into those sweet restorative stages. Actually, a recent double blind study by Bilshma and her team found that sleeping near common RF emitting devices, like, for example, baby monitors, significantly reduced subjective sleep quality and altered brainwave activity during deep sleep, reminding us that even invisible exposure to Wi Fi matters when designing for restorative rest. And well, finally, there's this fascinating piece that some might see as woo woo, which is the way we orient our beds. Matmanesh and his team in 2019 did a study showing that sleeping with your head aligned north-south rather than east-west can actually support deeper sleep cycles, at least in terms of brainwave activity. And yes, it's still an early area of research, but it's such an intriguing reminder that the environment shapes us in ways that we're only starting to understand. So, when we put all this together, so the temperature, ventilation, air quality, noise, light, even bed positioning, we see this picture so clearly. The bedroom is not just a place to crash at the end of the day, as I mentioned before. It's a partner in our well being. And as we're pulling all of this together, we need to name something that's very important. Even though the science on sleep environment is rapidly growing, it's still full of nuances and context specific findings that don't always translate perfectly to every person or every space. For example, in a 2021 field study in Shanghai, China, they combined surveys and environmental data like temperature, humidity, CO levels, and noise to see what made bedrooms most restful in the real humid summers of that city. And they found that the most comfortable bedroom temperature there was not 17 to 21 degrees Celsius, but actually around 24.8 degrees Celsius or 76.6 degrees Fahrenheit with a 64% humidity. And they discovered that while noise was a bigger sleep disruptor for women, air quality had a stronger impact on men. These kinds of insights remind us that while there's a general scientific consensus, like cooler air usually supporting deeper sleep, the exact numbers and needs shift based on culture, climate, and even gender or biology. It's not just a single target range. It's about tuning into what works best for the real user in the real bedrooms, not in the labs. Another context specific finding is noise, because while insulating against noise, especially above 35 decibels, is key for quality sleep, researchers also note that continuous background like white noise sound might actually help when intermittent noise can't be avoided. Another example of nuances are hospitals. Studies like Bano et al. In 2014 found that even when noise and lighting were adjusted for comfort, patients' stress and health conditions still had a huge influence on how well they slept, meaning the mind and body bring their own complexities to the room. And of course, the thing is that health is a very big nuance when we talk about sleep. Sleep disorders or unique health needs may require different environmental conditions than those highlighted in general research. Now, something else that's worth noting is that much of the EMF research is still unfolding. In fact, most studies are small, and the biological pathways aren't fully understood yet. So, while it's not something to worry too much about right now, it's definitely a good idea to experiment gently. So, small shifts like switching to airplane mode at night, or moving chargers farther away or to another room, or even trying EMF blocking fabrics can be a simple way to create a quieter environment for the user's brain to settle into a deeper sleep. So, as I see it, there's one big takeaway here. While science gives us an incredible foundation, it's not about finding one perfect temperature or one magic fix. It's about staying curious and responsive because sleep is as much about personal physiology and daily rhythms as it is about the environment. And for us designers, that's the real invitation to take what evidence tells us and weave it with what our clients' life and body are telling us as well. So, as you're designing bedrooms or setting up your own, focus on the basics. temperature, lighting, air quality, and noise are core signals that tell the nervous system, hey, you're safe here. You can now rest. Good design stays responsive. It adapts with the person who lives there. Now here's your challenge of the week. Pick one element in your sleep space to adjust. Dim the lights earlier, let in a bit of fresh air, or move anything that's disrupting your rest. Notice what shifts. Your body will tell you. And if you do try it, I would love to hear what you notice. So come back and leave a comment down below. If there's one thing I would like you to stay with from today's episode, is that the best bedroom designs don't just look good on pictures, they feel good for the person who wakes up in them every day. If this episode resonated, feel free to share it with someone who might need a soft entry point to this conversation. Also like, follow, or subscribe so you don't lose any new episode drop every Tuesday. And as always, thank you for being here. Stay well, stay curious, and keep designing your life with intention. See you next time.